Welcome to Redditors. Please hit the like button. Let's get on with the video.
People of Reddit who knew celebrities before they were famous. How different do they act now? I live in the town where Dolly Parton grew up, and practically everyone above the age of 50 who grew up here claims to either be a distant relative of Dolly's, or they claim to know her in some way. Everyone has their story of the time they met Dolly. It's pretty obvious, but regardless of who you talk to, Dolly has always been sweet and generous, but everything has simply grown exponentially due to her fame. Examples are the millions of books she gives out for free to children around the globe each month, or how she gave out $10,000 cash to many of my close friends after their houses burned in a fire a couple years back. Thousands of people are employed here and work for one of the businesses she owns, and it's a tad strange to see when you walk in, but the birthing center at the local hospital is funded by and named after her. I honestly can't think of one person I know who doesn't like her. Dolly's heart has only gotten bigger because of fame. I went to school with Rupert Grint, Ron Weasley from Harry Potter. I was into acting too, so we had done a few school plays together. He was really nice, very chill, a good laugh. I haven't seen him since school days, but he kept coming to classes whenever he wasn't filming, was always happy to chat about the movies. Sometimes he'd need a little break from so many people wanting to talk, and would come and hang out in the library, and honestly, you'd never know he was in the biggest film series at the time. Honestly, I think a lot of these answers boil down to if they want fame or not. Rupert loved what he was doing, but didn't care about being famous and having people kiss his ass. Just a nice normal kid. When I was really young I'd go the reptile park, originally owned by Bob Owen and passed on to his son Steve. Steve was always nice, would do all the lizard and croc shows, would hang out and chat afterwards. My dad would take me there occasionally and Steve would seem to remember us. Treated everyone like an old buddy. This was before he became famous obviously, and the small reptile park became the Australia Zoo. In my final year of high school I got in the zoo for work experience and they let me stay on. Steve was rarely there, and when he was he'd avoid guests, because they would swarm him and he'd get nothing done. But when I did run into him he was always super nice and still acted like that old friend. Didn't say crikey nearly as much as you'd think. That's definitely something Aussies say, but he really played that up for the cameras as his catchphrase. Unfortunately he died later that year, so right up till the end he was just a lovely person. My mom used to ride the bus to work in downtown Cleveland with Steve Harvey's first wife. Apparently she supported him while he was trying to get his career started, and then basically as soon as he got successful he divorced her for a younger woman. My mom always hated him because she felt that he treated his first wife like shit and always yells bastard at the TV when he pops up. A friend of mine is buddies with Paul Rudd, says he's exactly the same and a great human. When I went on a holiday to LA, This Is 40 was about to premiere. I was maybe 18 at the time. My mother and I got into our hotel's elevator, and there stood Megan Fox and Paul Rudd. My mother was going off, full Karen, about how silly it was that they blocked off roads in this town for a premiere of a movie. She had zero clue who they were. I knew. We three gave each other eye smiles as my mother went off on the film and the road etc for a few minutes before telling them to have a nice day. Jack Black is the same person he was as a teenager. Funny, kind, caring, and spreading that joy of music. My grandpa, R.I.P., owned a grocery store in Miami in the late 70s. Wesley Snipes and his friends once stole some candy from his store and when he caught them he let them have it. Since then Wesley and his friends were regulars. Once, Wesley left his bike in front of the store and it got stolen. Was a pretty bad area. My grandpa gave him his old bike that he kept in the back of the store. My uncle took over in 2001 when my grandpa died. In 2007 he came back to the store while my uncle and cousin were there to ask about my grandpa. My uncle said they talked for a little over an hour about how my grandpa treated him like a son. When he found out my grandpa passed he felt guilty he didn't visit sooner. He embraced my uncle and cousin and left. My uncle said he told him they plan on having the building repainted while they talked. About a week later a crew of painters arrived and told my uncle they were already paid to have the building repainted. Such a genuine dude. Not personally, but everyone in my town has a Dave Chappelle story. I worked with a guy who said he knew him. I called BS. We then met Dave and they were actually friends. Basically no one in town thought he would be much. Now he is a local hero, really down to earth. You literally see this man just chilling in the park in normal cheap clothes. Nothing has changed him. You wouldn't think he was famous. Maybe homeless but not famous. My grandfather taught Jack Nicholson in high school math class. Said he was rebellious but wasn't too bad at math. A close family friend was best friends with Tom Cruise before he got famous. I didn't believe her and she showed me pictures they have taken together, like a Vegas road trip, camping, etc. He was really awesome, but as soon as he got an ounce of fame it went to his head and he became very arrogant. I had a friend in high school whose cousin is Kendrick Lamar. He said Kendrick's pretty much still the same guy, acts the same around friends and family, just with millions of dollars now. My aunt was best friends with Madonna in high school, stayed friends until she got famous and she turned into a completely different person in the worst way possible. My co-worker's dad grew up with Queen Latifah in North Jersey. His whole family loves her because they were about to lose their house, so she paid it off for them. They've never said a bad thing about her. I can't remember before my aunt was famous. Alex Kingston played River Song in Doctor Who. But I remember going to her wedding and meeting Matt Smith, who played the Doctor in Doctor Who, and him fixing my flip-flop. The best moment of my life ever. I met Matt Smith too, but he was already famous. I was dating a guy who lived in the same fancy church renovated building as him. One night I was waiting outside for my date. He was late, and Matt Smith walked by. I smiled and said hello. A few weeks later he was on Top Gear and was asked about his experiences with creepy fans. He then proceeds to describe me, said I looked 11, I was 19, and that I was hiding in the bushes waiting for him outside his building. You filthy liar, Matt Smith. Also, I licked your mail as revenge. I had a teacher who taught Drake. Apparently he was a nice kid but then got really douchey when he started getting famous. Tyler the Creator exactly the same. We were all concerned at how bizarre he was. He would call people a table or something incredibly random, and the sense of humor caught on in my high school. The fame did nothing. He's still strange and a sweetheart. My dad was good friends with Will Smith before the Fresh Prince days. Will actually showed him the pilot before it aired. Fast forward however many years to After Earth and Will invited us on the set. His first words when he saw my dad 10+ years later was, "The Philly crew is back. Both Will and Jaden are the sweetest people you'll ever meet." Bruno Mars's mom was a bartender at a local karaoke dive bar that I was a regular at. At the time, his biggest hit was The Hook for Billionaire by Travie McCoy. Anyway, she was selling tickets for an upcoming concert he was having and she asked our table if we wanted to buy some. My friend declined and she exclaimed, "Why not? He's my son." I ended up getting a couple of tickets despite not knowing any of Bruno Mars songs. It turned out to be one of the best concerts I've ever been to. The guy knows how to put on a good live show. The tickets were only $40 each, I think. His opening act was a local group of large Polynesian men singing Motown who went by the name Nation 9. They were pretty good too. The next time he was in town for a concert, he had blown up and the tickets were going for $400. I would have loved to see him again, but not at that price. His mom was really nice, down to earth, and a pretty good singer herself. R.I.P. Bernie. At least she lived long enough to see her son's success. Went to middle school with Megan Fox for a bit. She rode my bus and she mostly kept to herself. Most of the guys would fight over who was going to sit next to her, but she was very shy and didn't really have much to say. Megan Fox seems like a pretty chill person. I've liked her as an actor screen presence since I saw the first Bay Transformers film. I thought she easily outshone Shia LaBeouf in that one. Loved her in Jennifer's Body. Painfully underrated actor who doesn't put up with bullshit from powerful men. My mom knew Seal as far back as when he was still trying to be an architect, and she says he was always really nice. They didn't stay in touch. She moved away and they were never close, but she said he went out of his way to foster genuine connections to people before and after his music started to gain traction. He always had star quality. Everyone from the most important person in the room to a janitor walking through would be drawn to him. And he'd engage with everyone in a way that really stuck. She always mentions that he was just a really sincere, deeply felt person. I went to college with Joe Kiriak as Steve Harrington in Stranger Things. He was my college boyfriend's sweet mate and just the nicest guy. His hair has always been dreamy and amazing. Last time I saw him was at a viewing of The Hateful Eight after we graduated and he still made a point to come over and say hi. I went to junior high with Nora Jones. She was the most sincere and serene person. She was fun to talk to and she never gave a hint of who her father was. The night she won all those Grammys was very telling that she hadn't changed a bit. My mom is friends with Johnny Knoxville's cousin. She met him once and had no idea who he was. She said he was nice and funny as all hell. She didn't realize until years later she'd even met him until I showed her one of his movies. From what I gather he's a normal dude and pretty hilarious. I know this is not what the question is asking. It's sort of the other way around. Have you met a famous person who is as nice as people say? But as it's about Tom Hanks, it has to be told. My cousin worked at a legal chambers in London, and they were told a film crew were coming in to use it for a few weeks. They were told don't engage with the actors. Just go about your business. The film The Da Vinci Code, and, as per above spoilers, Tom Hanks was in it. For a day or three, they all did as they were told, kept their heads down, until eventually Tom Hanks came and knocked on their lunchroom door. Basically just said sus for messing up where you work. Can I join you for lunch? And then it was on. Every day, breakfast and lunch, where time permitted. Tom Hanks was hanging out with these guys like he was a new employee, reading the newspaper, making cups of tea, getting in the bacon rolls or whatever, calling people's family members to say hi it's Tom Hanks for a laugh just to see this reaction. Basically, after a couple of weeks, was just like one of the team. Everyone on first name terms, just genuinely nice. Last day he made sure to say bye to everyone. He brought them all some kind of gift, I can't remember what, but it was really low-key, inexpensive, but personal, which was a nice touch. Just as really wholesome time for everyone. People say Tom Hanks is an absolute lad, and it transpires he is. My grandmother and mum were really good friends with George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley from Wham. They got invited to concerts and got to sit in special seats etc. And a few years ago me and my family stayed with Andrew Ridgeley in his guest house in Cornwall for a weekend. But, they seemed to me like they stayed really nice to my grandparents and mum. And Andrew Ridgeley was very kind to my family when we met him. Family friend of mine actually dated Kurt Cobain before Ms. Love. Apparently they broke up because he wouldn't get a job. Then a little while later he got famous. Can't finish the question for obvious reasons. Friend of mine was friends with Tom Hanks in high school and went to prom with him. He still writes her personalized B-Day cards on one of his typewriters.